Hey everyone, Jim Branscome from Cinematic Void here, about to take another journey into the Mouth of Cinemadness. This is a sub-series of the Cinematic Void vlog where I talk about movies that were influential, impactful, or just made an impression on me growing up as a wee little cinephile getting into cult films that grew up to the cinemaniac I am today. Basically the building blocks of what eventually became Cinematic Void, my film programming series I host in Los Angeles. The film I'm talking about today is one of my favorite films. It was a film I was just obsessed with. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a good year or two that I would watch this film at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, and it's David Cronenberg's Videodrome.
Videodrome, starring Deborah Harry and James Woods. A shocking new vision from the creator of Scanners.
As I was beginning to learn more about the different cult filmmakers, obviously George Romero was the filmmaker that opened the door for me. I love Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead trilogy, but I started looking into other filmmakers who made a lot of films in the genre. That was kind of my focal point, and David Cronenberg was one I kept reading about and hearing about these movies, like, whoa, I gotta see this stuff. So just kind of randomly, one day on A&E, yes, the Arts and Entertainment Channel, which probably doesn't play anything art or entertainment anymore, just happened to be playing Videodrome. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna tape it off A&E. Now, obviously this is the TV cut of Videodrome, which, you know, it's gonna be missing the gore and the sex stuff and basically all the things that a lot of people watch Videodrome for, but I didn't know any better, so I taped that version off of A&E and I watched it and I loved it. I loved the whole world, even though I wasn't seeing, you know, Cronenberg's exact vision, but I just loved everything about it, from, like, you know, the Death of the Videodrome, Long Live the New Flesh.
Death of the Videodrome, Long Live the New Flesh!
Like, all the dialogue, all the, like, things going into, like, the video signal corrupting your brain, causing tumors, and, like, all the body horror stuff, even though that version, you don't see any of it. So I watched that TV version, had it taped, watched it a few times. I was like, you know what, I want to see the actual uncut version. So I went and rented Videodrome, and the VHS tape was the director's cut, and popped it in, and then I got to see, you know, all the sex elements, that violence. Basically, it was like being exposed to Videodrome by watching Videodrome, and I was hooked. It was kind of like an eye-opening religious experience, and I just felt like I've discovered the greatest thing ever. But as a burgeoning cinephile, I noticed that there was different footage in the TV version that wasn't in the director's cut. Now, the reason being is that Universal Studios, the studio that distributed Videodrome, was very notorious for putting out some pretty wacky TV cuts of their movies, usually to replace, like, the violence and gore, which you couldn't have on regular TV back in the day. But they would put in alternate footage, alternate takes, and sometimes alternate storylines that kind of altered the actual movie you're watching. There's a moment in the TV cut, it kind of spells things out a little too much, where you see James Woods, it's after he has the helmet on, when they're trying to see how much the Videodrome has corrupted him and caused the tumor in his brain. And he's not wearing the helmet, but he's walking outside and he stops and looks at his reflection, and in the reflection you see he's wearing the helmet. So it kind of implies that maybe, just maybe, he's still in this, like, weird helmet experience where the rest of the movie goes. But in the director's cut, that's not there, and it's more ambiguous as what is going on. But I got this crazy idea. It's like, I want to make a super cut of Videodrome. I want to take all the footage that's in the TV cut that's not in the director's cut and add them together. And I actually sat out and did this. And how I did it was a very arcane way. I didn't have a video editing system. I didn't even know I was going to eventually get into video editing or that kind of stuff, but it basically took 3 VCRs. Had one deck where it had the director's cut of Videodrome in, I had a second deck where it had the TV cut that I taped off A&E, and then there was a third deck that had a blank tape in there. So basically, using the director's cut as my guideline, I would start recording on that VCR the director's cut, and when I knew there was a section where there was some alternate footage in the TV cut, pause the director's cut, and then I would hit play on the TV cut and put that footage in. And at the time I thought, wow, I did a really good job. I'm sure it was absolute shit.
I've got something I want to play for you.
It was just something about the movie, just James Woods' characters, Max Wren, just this journey of like self-discovery and self-destruction he goes on. Deborah Harry's Nikki Brand, which was, I don't know, it's just, you know, you don't really get that from a Blondie song.
What are you waiting for, lover? Let's perform. Let's open those neural floodgates.
It's just like kind of being open or getting to see like sex in a different way. Because when you watch lots of R-rated movies, sex is pretty like mundane. But like this one was kind of, sex was kind of dangerous, a little bit kinky, maybe a little bit hotter. Maybe I was having a self-discovery as I was watching it. But also there was these top-notch Rick Baker special effects, had an incredible, eerie, disturbing, and disorienting score by Howard Shore. Videodrome also had a factor of when I started being in bands, because it was just something about the philosophy of the movie, or, you know, the philosophy that's talked about in the movie that just really intrigued me. And in my first band that I did with Nick from the Cinematic Void podcast called Inspite, our first demo ends with a sound clip from Videodrome. And each of those releases, including a compilation track we were on, had sound clips from Cronenberg movies that became the signature. But like with the songs I was writing and just the things I was thinking about, I was just obsessed by this world of like snuff and like how video image can corrupt you. It was this thing that I just like couldn't get enough of. Literally, Videodrome was like Videodrome to me. My obsession with Videodrome definitely spilled over into an obsession with David Cronenberg as a filmmaker in general. I would search out and try to find, at the time, VHS tapes of all of his movies. While Videodrome was the backbone, going back and watching Scanners and The Brood, They Came From Within, Rabid, The Fly, just taking it all in. It was just like I became obsessed with his work, and I became obsessed with body horror. Unlike a lot of the horror films I was watching at the time, there was just a sophistication to it. Yeah, it was gory, but there was this maturity of it, and just, you know, being into it made me feel smarter for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because Cronenberg comes off very intellectual. It's a highbrow take on exploitation cinema. So one of the most important books that I got back in the day that I read over and over again is Cronenberg on Cronenberg, and just kind of learn more insight in David Cronenberg. Videodrome was also the first film that, like, you know, I felt compelled that I wanted to own a movie poster, and I wanted to own the soundtrack, and I wanted to own the novelization. I wanted anything to do with Videodrome I had to have. I used to have a giant poster, which unfortunately got damaged a few years ago, but I still have my copy of the soundtrack here. And I was gifted this by Nick Vance. This was the beginning of obsession. This is something where like I needed it, and I needed to be in this world. And I feel like, you know, I didn't really do a lot of drugs as a kid or as an adult, but Videodrome was my drug of choice. This was the movie that just like I needed in my veins. I need to keep watching it because it took me to a place that like I didn't know existed in cinema. So that wraps up this edition of In the Mouth of Cinemadness. Until next time, see you in the void.
Long live the new flesh.